Hi, welcome to the Diecast Podcast. Today I'm here with Jeremy K. Schumann Jr., who is also known as Father Goose. Jeremy is going to be talking to us about his new game that is currently kickstarting, Where Shadows Fall. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. That intro is amazing, by the way. And,
Well, I wish I could take full credit for that, but like every good artist, you learn to steal and pull from different areas.
Oh yeah. This project was stolen from a lot of places, so we have that in common here.
Cool. Before we get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself, as far as how you got started into gaming, and a little bit about your history and other stuff that you do.
Okay. Well, my dad was a kid when the original Dungeons and Dragons came out, and his best friend bought it immediately, and so he'd spend every weekend over there playing. So I kind of grew up with gaming being just a normal part of my childhood. I didn't start playing till I was a teenager because my mom thought it would keep me from doing fun kid things, but
and she was right.
But I've been reading the material my whole life, and been running games since I was a teenager. Started with second edition Dungeons and Dragons, transitioned into third. Didn't really like where things went after that, so I played other things. Played some Pathfinder. Played a lot of Palladium games. A lot of World of Darkness and various other horror games, Shadowrun, etc. And then found Dungeon Crawl Classics just a few years ago, and fell in love with the whole presentation of the game. It was hit all the right nostalgic notes without the things that only nostalgia can make you miss.
And in the DCC community, I mean, I couldn't help but kind of notice everybody's Father Goose, Father Goose. Who's this Father Goose? Like, everybody's loving Father Goose. And then I kind of put two and two together, and you did the Corvaxian Codex as well before doing this Kickstarter. So you got those in
my
hand?
First project, and then follow-up stuff, including an adventure for it.
Cool. So just tell us.
That's my T-shirt too.
Right on. And I'm assuming you have a merch shop that people can buy those at?
Not at the moment. I did have a Redbubble account for a while, but they changed some of their policies several months ago, and I decided to look elsewhere. I haven't yet set up the new one, but it'll be posted online as soon as I do, and that should come within the next few months.
Cool. Well, I'll have all the links in the description and the show notes, and people can check out your Kickstarter. And let's just jump right into it. Why don't we?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about Where Shadows Fall. What's the overall concept behind Shadows Fall?
So the idea was that I wanted to get back to a modern setting, kind of fantasy horror game that I used to play a lot and haven't in a number of years. And I kept looking at my game books, thinking about going back to one of the systems or settings that I had played before, but that wasn't really grabbing me. And I thought, DCC is so versatile. Why don't I just do something with that? So the idea is to use the simplified mechanics of Dungeon Crawl Classics, but to reinterpret them into a modern setting, maintain some of the fantasy elements, introduce a little more of the horror side of things, and put you in a world that on the surface looks like ours, but behind the scenes magic and the supernatural exists, hidden from the view of mortals. Not a new concept. Other games, movies, TV shows have done this. CJ Kurilla created Witchcraft, the Buffy RPG, the Angel RPG. He worked for Palladium for a while and created Nightbane. So he's done a lot of that. Nightlife is terribly underrated, wonderful precursor to World of Darkness games. And all of those have borrowed these ideas before. You see that in the old World of Darkness, the new World of Darkness, now rebranded Chronicles of Darkness. You see that that hidden world within a world in the second Hellboy film. Uh, you see those concepts in Buffy and Angel. You see that in the Dresden Files books, and to a lesser extent TV show, X Files, and even Warehouse 13 for a lighter side of things has things that exist in the world that people don't know exist in the world. You even see that in like the Librarians movies and TV shows. So this was not new. But I wanted to give my own spin on it that takes all of these influences that I've loved over the years in various medias, channel them into one streamlined game.
And on your Kickstarter, I noticed like you talk about some of the other DCC products that are kind of also in the same space, like Ninja
Mhm.
City, with Joey Royale writing that, and he's been a
Mhm.
guest. I'll eventually put a link up above to that interview that I did with Joey Royale, and just tell us like why DCC would be a good fit for this.
So DCC works really well because there's generally two approaches to game design. One is level based, and the other is point based. So a lot of games, the World of Darkness games, for instance, Shadowrun, those kinds of things are point based. You earn XP and you spend them on individual items. Then Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Castles and Crusades, games like that are level based. You pick your class and start at low level, and as you gain experience, you advance in level from there. And there's drawbacks and merits to both approaches. Oftentimes, I actually prefer the point based for greater flexibility, but Dungeon Crawl Classics manages to do something that I think Palladium games is about the only other game system that I know of that can give you a level-based system that feels as free as the point-based. So you get the structure and the lack of analysis paralysis that level based provides you, but the freedom to express your character's individuality and grow and shape it uh, in the way that point based normally provides you. So Dungeon Crawl Classics is a really great just framework for all kinds of gaming. And I was noticing that I'm not the only one who's had the idea of move beyond the fantasy into something else. And I thought, you know, rather than just piling these zines on the table and telling my players, yeah, let's make something, why don't I make something that will allow me to draw in these zines from other creators that I admire, some of which are friends of mine, and put them all in the same place. And this slide you put up is the perfect segue for that. The Shadow is my way of giving a name to a concept. The shadow is not a tangible thing that you can point to and say, "Oh, look, there's the shadow right over there." Uh, it's it's more of a term for what happens. Now you see this in other media, so it's not new. But the idea that modern day human beings do not do well with things that don't make sense. Our minds want to rationalize everything. And so the shadow is a term for this presence that is felt by most people that tells them that certain things cannot be and it must be something else.
Before we move on, I was having flashbacks to my Glitter Boy creation in Palladium, so I overpowered or what. But let's move on. And so where the shadows fall, and you can see the aesthetics is this is kind of like those found documents like you would find in a like a, folder and go, here's your dossier, and then it's up to the players to kind of figure out what they should be doing.
yeah, I wanted to capture the feel that makes you think that perhaps, some guy in a bunker or a basement with a tinfoil hat is typing away at an old uh, typewriter to get the message out into the world before they stop him. So
And then you've got modern world, modern occupations, and is it hard to transition DCC from to a modern setting with all the different technology advancements from like a DCC world?
it's really not. DCC is structured enough that you don't feel like you have to make everything up, but it's loose enough that you don't have to account for everything either. So with the way the occupation system works in Dungeon Crawl Classics, your occupation informs what your character ought to know how to do, and so that can cover an awful lot of ground that would otherwise require a list of skills and such in some other games.
And then here we go into the different races that you can be.
So DCC uses the classic D&D approach of race as class for non-humans, and that works really well for a fantasy setting, but it starts to break down a little bit in a modern setting, especially one like this where uh, the non-humans are integrated secretly into our world. So I needed to separate the two concepts, but I didn't want to just have a long list of races. So I actually broke them down into more categories. So you'll see like the stout folk that covers your dwarves and your gnomes and your halflings and similar type creatures. Your gobos are your short, ugly monster creatures. Goblins and kobolds and gremlins and such. And this allows you to distill things down into what is similar for mechanic purposes, but for the player purposes, you've got a lot more freedom to say, well, I'm a leprechaun and you're a dwarf, and you're a gnome, but mechanically we work the same. So
And I'm sure gobble mothers love their children, and they're just beautiful children to
absolutely,
the
absolutely,
gobble mothers.
best mothers out there.
And then you also have classes.
Yes. So six classes. The idea being that most people, just like in DCC, they follow their occupation. They don't have classes. So I needed the classes then to stand out as being something more than. And I did that with all except for the mage has a mechanic that's modeled after the warrior's mighty deeds of arms from DCC. Each class has a special die that increases as they level in size, that allows them to either do something better or do something in a way that normally wouldn't be possible. So diplomats, for instance, have a die that increases their results on personality based skills, like to influence people and things like that. But the sneak can use their die to be able to move so seamlessly from one shadow to another that it seems almost magical, as if they're teleporting from one place to the next. So each one has something special about it.
Cool. And then you also have a whole section, or it's three zines, correct? That are going to be
Yes.
put together.
Yes, so the main zine is the only one that players need. It has everything you need for character creation: your races, your classes, your occupations, your equipment, magic, all of that, and a brief breakdown of the various factions. Basically, what a player character might know about them. And then there's the faction zine, which goes into greater detail about the factions that is available for judges. Will provide story seeds and NPCs and such. And then a creature zine will have, I think there's 16 new creatures that fit the theme.
Cool.
Got to
And
have creatures, but the factions I wanted to have, because that really sells the setting.
cool. And some of these you can kind of like draw comparisons to, like whether it's the who am I thinking of? The Illuminati and that
Mhm.
sort of thing, and science and government and
Absolutely.
ancient Greek mythology.
The classic tropes are classic and tropes for a reason, and so I wanted to lean into that while also giving it a little bit of a spin or a twist to make it my own.
Cool. And then how long is the Where the Shadows Fall Kickstarter running till?
So it's a 15-day Kickstarter, and it launched on Sunday. So
So got about a week and a half
yeah,
to go. And
thereabouts.
and what are do you have any special tiers, or is it just digital print?
It's mostly digital and print, although you can decide whether you want the bundle of all three zines or if you just want the player zine. And there's a tier for a gaming group, which gets you several of the base zine and then one copy each of the judge ones. That way the judge can have all three and distribute copies of the base zine to the players.
Cool. Well, I want to say, Jeremy, thanks for coming on. I'm going to have all the links to the Kickstarter and your other content in the description of the video below. So people, check it out. Indie game designers need your support. So get out there and help take down the behemoth of Wizards of the Coast by supporting our indie game designers.
I appreciate you having me on, Gary, and thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Cool. And then if you are an indie game designer and you are sitting there watching this and going, hey, how can I be on the show? Go to daikugames.com/game pitch, and there's information on how you can be on Game Pitch. And tell them Game Pitch Gary sent you.
Hey friends, are you looking for a game that is not Dungeons or Dragons? Well, we got exactly what you need at Daiku Game Pitch. We got zines, we got OSR, we got adventures. But wait, there's more. We got solo games, we got journaling games, we even got card games and dice games. Oh hell, I don't even know what kind of game this is, but we got it. And if you visit us in the next 2 minutes, you're gonna get all the Zine Quest, Zine Months, Itch Fund, and Backer Kits Kickstarters that you can handle. Visit us at www.daikugames.com and tell them a Game Pitch Gary sent ya.